Hello, my name's Colin Crithers, and I'm a student reporter and broadcaster at the University of Iowa. As a journalist, my job is to tell stories, while also balancing everything else going on in my life as a student. But no one tells our stories. So, my goal is to tell the stories of the student journalists, broadcasters, and storytellers all across the country. Let's walk the student beat. Welcome in. Today we're walking the student beat with Griffin Barfield of Clemson. Griffin, how are you?
Doing pretty good. How about you, Colin?
Pretty good. Getting into this, I was telling you, having plenty of issues. If everyone when they hear this will be out on Friday. Remembers the internet outage from earlier this week. That's what we're dealing with today. But we're still getting it in and getting in a new episode. So thank you for spending some time and joining me today.
Yeah, of course. I appreciate the time. I mean, it's a pretty cool idea, so I'm excited to get going.
Thank you. I appreciate it. If you don't mind just starting off with a little bit of an introduction to yourself, some of the just basics background and the journalistic outlets you've worked with.
Yeah. So again, my name's Griffin Barfield. I'm a senior graduating in December. I go to Clemson University. Originally, I'm from Oceanport, New Jersey, otherwise known as the Jersey Shore. But I recently my family moved to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So that's where I call home now. Journalistic outlets. Currently, I'm the sports editor of the Tiger newspaper, Clemson's student newspaper on campus since 1908. In addition to that, I'm also the associate beat writer with Clemson Tigers on SI with the on SI franchises right now. And then I'm planning on becoming a full-time writing with them after December. I do some writing on campus for different on-campus internships. And then if this counts as journalism, I help run Barstool Clemson for Barstool Sports as a vice writer.
Hey, I think it counts as journalism. Absolutely.
Yeah, anything coverage works.
Any sort of media, I think, works, right?
Most definitely.
Well, I want to dive into each of those, but first, I want you to kind of tell me how you got into sports journalism. What was it that, if you can remember back to the moment you realized that's what I want to do, what was that moment?
Most definitely. I think so. I didn't really know what I wanted to do going into school. I knew that it wanted to be something communications related. I knew how to speak well. I knew how to kind of be well in front of audiences. In high school, I was actually a film student for a long time, and then I also did theater. So I had that presence. I was able to kind of tell stories and do that type of things. So I knew that I wanted to have some sort of background with those two things. And then I've been a sports fan for as long as I've had consciousness for that, as long as so some of my greatest memories have been watching sports with my grandfather when we're, having dinner together or, doing stuff like that. So I knew that I wanted to have some sort of sports relation to it. So I guess tying all three of those things together, I think ended up like this. So at Clemson, there's something that all freshmen have. It's called Tiger Prowl. It happens at the football stadium, and there's just it's kind of just in the bowl, and there's just clubs everywhere, and that's kind of how you get to know all the different clubs on campus. So I think I was examining the part of the Tiger, the student newspaper's stuff for a little bit, and then the sports editor ended up coming up to me, and he's like, he's kind of getting to know me a little bit, and he's like, "What have you done with sports? Are you interested at all?" I'm like, "No, do you mind telling me a little bit about it?" And he's like, "We can get you into sports broadcasting, analytics, anything that you're trying to get into with that. This will be a really good kind of springboard to help that all out." And I guess the rest is history there. And I started getting a bit of a love for it. I grew up playing soccer, so Clemson men's soccer was the main thing that I began to cover first. And I really liked being able to tell stories about the team and different players, and being able to know them on a personal level was really cool to me. So I guess that's where it all started, and I've stuck with the Tiger, and then I was able to kind of pick up different internships along the way, and I guess that's kind of how it's got me to where I am today.
Yeah, it's amazing. I like the last thing you kind of touched on there, just loving to tell the stories. I think recently it kind of sunk into me. Like I'm evaluating again, like, all right, this is what I want to do, right? And I realize it is that story aspect that's so much fun.
Most definitely. I think you're able to kind of touch a lot of lives that you don't know about. And I think it's really cool to kind of talk about stories that aren't really talked about. Obviously, being at Clemson, football is kind of the cream of the crop. But I've been able to talk to a lot of different people on different teams, even alumni. I was able to kind of sit down with the national championship goalkeeper from the 80s from Clemson. And it was just really cool to kind of get to know him. He had stints in the United Kingdom playing soccer as well. So it's cool to hear those little pockets of information, and then you're being able to tell the story with kind of like your own creative style. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, some of the alumni can be so cool. I grew up, I don't know if you grew up a Clemson fan. I grew up an Iowa fan. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, by the way, so I'm not from here, but I grew up an Iowa
Okay.
fan. And there was a story I did where last year for the men's basketball team, three of the players, all their dads played at Iowa as well. So I was able to get in contact with all their dads and like basically tell their story from their time being there and watching their own kids play there as well. I don't know if you grew up a Clemson fan, but
Yeah, I grew up a Clemson fan. My dad's from South Carolina. He's from right outside the Charlotte area. So we spent summers down here. That's kind of how I got my to Clemson story. But I've had family that have gone to Clemson, been Clemson fan, Clemson alumni. So at least with my dad's family, it's either your South Carolina or Clemson. I chose Clemson. So it was really cool being able to be, growing up and going to middle school and being able to watch Clemson football and when they were good at the time during those years. It was really cool, and I think that played a really big factor into why I ended up choosing Clemson as well.
and say the mid to late 2010s were probably so exciting for you.
Yeah, they were. It was fun. I wasn't really outspoken about it. I was just really close with my dad about it, and anytime they were playing, we would watch. Very frequently that those Wake Forest, all of those. But I guess that kind of just again brought kind of the passion that I like this, and even if I didn't start in college football, I mean, it's just really electric. I'm sure that you can say the same with any sort of Iowa athletics.
Oh yeah, no. Right now in the fall, our women's soccer team, our women's field hockey team are pretty good, and those get a lot of fun. So like right now, well, at the point that we're recording this, it's probably like just now getting adjusted, but like the women's soccer team's like fifth in the country. They're probably gonna move down a little
Wow.
bit, but that's a lot of fun to watch and cover. Because I didn't grow up like much of a soccer fan, but I've grown to love soccer here and learn the game, which I think is cool as well.
Yeah, I think that's another cool aspect is that based off of how like what schools like what like you can kind of like change your perception on it. At least for me, I mean, believe it or not, I wasn't a baseball guy growing up. Like I was more fast paced. I liked men's basketball, I liked men's soccer, women's basketball, the whole nine. So it was kind of cool that Clemson has such a deeply cultured community in terms of baseball. So it was, I don't really cover many of those games, but it's cool to be in the stands and kind of have these different parts of the stadium that many people know about. And like, it's just kind of a really deep culture, which I really enjoy. I'm sure you can
Oh yeah.
compare it somewhere at Iowa as well.
Yeah, I think it's fun to like because like as a journalist, you're the one with the info telling everyone else about everything, but you're also kind of learning in the process. And I think that's kind of fun from a student perspective to like learn about everything Iowa athletics, Clemson athletics, and then share it all with everyone else.
I think it's cool, especially I know every fan base is different, but whether it's social media, Instagram, Twitter, it's cool to kind of have a lot of people looking behind you and looking at you for information. At least for me, like my roommates are always asking me like, "What's the inside scoop?" And I'm like, "I don't know," or like off the record, I can't say like stuff like that. So it's cool to kind of be a beacon of information where you're able to kind of say different things, or even tell different stories or different things that are going on within a player or an organization's, behind the scenes.
Yeah, dude, I love that part of it. I love that part. You mentioned something a little bit earlier that I don't want to like brush by yet. You're mostly writing, right? You're not much on camera.
Mainly writing, yes, but
Okay.
I do a few things, camera, whether if it's like podcasts like these or I'm a part of the Clemson Student TV network as well. So sometimes I'll hop on panels and express my thoughts with stuff like that, but I don't do anything like that anymore.
Okay. So, because you mentioned like taking theater in high school and everything, and I've taken like a few theater classes in high school, and I took one in college so far. I haven't been able to get another one in my schedule, but I know like I'm doing mostly like the on camera broadcast side of it. It actually has really helped me. And I don't know if that's the case with you as well, or if it translates to writing at all.
I think it translates to writing a little bit. I think something that I'm going to be moving towards in the future is trying to do a lot more things on camera. So it's kind of cool, at least for me. I mean, doing theater in high school, I mean, you were acting out some interesting characters and you're able to kind of put your own spin on it. I think you can do the same thing with this. Like, obviously, you're watching the big broadcasters or the analysts or the sideline line reporters. So that's kind of like your basis, what you need to know how to do. And then, like, once again, you're able to put your own style on things. And I'm sure that you have your own little sayings, your own little things that you would do as well throughout your broadcast. So it's cool because that's kind of ends up being your personal brand. And I think a lot of people underestimate the value of that because if you're able to, be able to wrap people in with, a certain quote or a certain phrase or a certain saying that gets people thinking about it, I think it's a really cool thing to be able to have.
we had like, I don't want to say debate per se, but it was a conversation last year with people about like those classes and how like if it does anything for you. And I was like, well, someone else brought up your point of yeah, like it can just help build your personality a little bit. But also, like another part that I brought up was it just helps you develop just your thinking, like that you can think on the spot. You can think of things to be creative about without needing to sit there for a long period of time and come up with something.
Yeah, improvisation is so important because so many things are changing in the world of sport. I mean, you can even it kind of even moves on to stories as well. Like sometimes if you're writing a story and then there's a really late comeback and you already have the story ready and you're trying to publish it out right when the game ends, you're like, oh shoot, I gotta flip this thing around, change it, do it, this, that, and the other. So I think that that was probably one of the main things that theater taught me was that it was you're able to think on the spot and think of changes on the spot that either represent your brand or represent whatever you're trying to end up accomplishing, which I think is a really cool thing.
No, absolutely. I'd 100% agree with that. Now, you also mentioned being the sports editor now a little bit. So let's go back on that real quick. Mention again who you're a sports editor for, what that role kind of looks like.
Yeah. So I started with the Tiger newspaper. I've kind of worked my way up. I was assistant sports editor for I believe 3 semesters, and then I've been sports editor for the last 2 semesters. So that entails so I have 3 editors under me, and then I run a senior staff of 12 reporters plus contributors. So those are people that can't provide a weekly article, or they're on and off, and they have other commitments that they need to tend to. So generally, I run about, I would say, between 18 to 20 reporters, both on and off, whether they're editor, contributor. So what that consists of is we do a bi-weekly print issue every 2 weeks. So what that entails is that I pick between 6, 7, 8 stories during those periods, and then I get them polished. I have to do wireframes, so I have to work really closely with Adobe InDesign. And then I'm working really closely with the other parts of the newspaper. So the arts and entertainment section, the opinion section, the news section. So if there's something on the front page that needs to be had, and they come to me, so you're working really closely with other branches, and you're also managing a lot of people, which is really cool. And then I handle credentialing, whether it comes to photographers or whether it comes to some of my reporters or myself. And then at the same time, I'm also kind of just leading a group, working with AP style workshops or working with articles or working with one-on-ones. So personally, you're working very closely with a bunch of different people, and you're also working really closely with the athletic administration. You're working really closely with kind of the editor in chief and the associate editors with what you need to do better. So a lot of different hats that I have to put on for the role, and unfortunately, I'm kind of easing my way out of the role over the next 2 weeks because of elections are coming up and I'm graduating. But I would say probably out of everything that I've been able to do. Um, as a student journalist, I'd say the Tiger has been the most rewarding that I've had so far, which is great.
I was an ass out of all of that. What's been your favorite part of the job?
I think my favorite part of the job is being able to, again, kind of being able to be that beacon information for the students, being able to hear all those types of stories and information. And, a lot of people are going to be asking about press conferences and what they said, and you're able to write that out and say, hey, this is what's happening. Or you're also able to put some cool stories out, especially if they're printed stories. So the story about that alumni who was the goalkeeper for the national championship team, it was able to be a feature story, and a lot of people are able to pick that up, and it's really cool to kind of see the fruits of the labor with that. And then I learned a lot, probably graphic design. I didn't really know a lick of anything when it comes to graphic design or Adobe. So I think being able to grow with that has allowed me to get more versatile. But if you're asking me for something that's fun, I'd probably say going to the events and kind of being like, man, like I was able to go to the kind of namely, I was able to go to the college football playoff last year when Clemson played at Texas in Austin. So that was cool. Being able to go to March Madness, unfortunately last year, which was fun nevertheless. So all those, I think traveling was the most fun, most rewarding.
Getting to go to some of those places are so cool. Like I went last year. Now my voice was sounding like this because I had gotten like I lost my voice the night before. I lost my voice this weekend at the Iowa Penn State game. I don't know if you saw the result of that game, but
Congratulations, by the way.
thank you, thank you. It's one of the few games I've gone to as a fan. So I went all out. I screamed my head off and was celebrating. So that's why my voice is like this right now. Just clarification. But no, I think last year I went to like Big Ten men's basketball tournament, and that was super cool. Just to sit there and just enjoy some. Like I'm a big basketball guy, so just to be able to watch some basketball and then also be like, oh, this is my job too. Like I get to go tell the story about what happened here. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, last year I went to ACC tip off. And like it's so cool because I was only what 20, 21 years old, and I'm able to be kind of treated like the rest of these it's kind of these credentialed media who have been working in this field for 10, 20, 30, even 30 plus years. So it's cool to not only do have that sort of recognition, but you're also able to learn so much. How are they asking questions? How are they shaping their stories? So I think another thing is I've just been able to form a lot of really close relationships with some of those professionals already, and I've been able to learn from them really well and just kind of take different parts of each person's craft and kind of learn from it. And it's really cool. I'm sure you feel the same.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Do you have a favorite, I guess, location you've been to? Is it like ACC tip off? Is it college football playoffs, or is it something different?
I would say probably the coolest thing. I would say the coolest place I went. I went to Providence, Rhode Island for that March Madness tournament, which was cool. It was in the middle of my spring break. I was in Savannah, Georgia, and I saw the selection. I'm like, I'm buying a ticket. Like, I'm going. Like, this was my dream to go to a March Madness game. I would say probably under the radar. Last year I went to Clemson, Georgia, at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So being able to go in an NFL stadium and they give you on-field access, and there was like the college game day, like the Skycam camera when they were interviewing both Kirby Smart and Dabo Sweeney. So I'd probably say that was the coolest because like at the point it was a top 10 matchup. You're like, man, like I'm really here, and I'm going to be watching like at least what I thought was going to be a good football game. But it's just cool to see all that stuff. I would say Atlanta for sure.
Yeah,
To just go to that game.
that's Mercedes Benz looks so cool, by the way. Like I'll admit, being from Cincinnati, I'm a Bengals fan. I've been to Paycor Stadium where like their home field two or three times, and it was mostly when the Cincinnati Bearcats played there just to watch a college
Mhm.
football game. I've outside of that, I've been to like the Titans Stadium, like Nissan Stadium. That's it. That's it. I have not watched the Bengals regular season game at home, so I
Really?
guess I'll talk to myself a little bit. But Mercedes Benz looks awesome. Like that place looks awesome.
It's cool because it's indoor and it's a really cool area. It was also a neutral site game is really awesome because you're able to see the different types of tailgates, and they're Georgia and Clemson kind of just that was kind of like the central point. So you're able to see the Georgia tailgates. What are they doing? What's their culture like? And then you go over to Clemson's and you're like, oh, this is what I'm kind of used to. And it was loud in there. I'm sure it's probably because it was indoors, but the bands were incredibly loud. It was just an overall loud environment. I would love to go back, even for an NFL game. It doesn't even have to be for a college event or anything like that. I just want to go again.
I gotta like assume they built part of it to try to be louder, especially with it being inside. I would assume that's probably how they did that.
I'm sure that's definitely a factor. I mean, I'm trying to think. I think it was like Minnesota was the other indoor one, and I know that they're like notoriously loud. So I'm sure that was definitely a factor.
Oh yeah, I've never watched. Yeah, I'm making sure I don't say something that's wrong. I don't think I've ever been in person to watch a football game inside, like in a dome. Was it like did it feel weird at first or?
I think it felt weird, because I'm always trying to adjust my attire based off the weather. If it's like a basketball game, like you're throwing on a coat, or like I went to the ACC championship last year, I was in gloves and like I had like a turtleneck underneath my blazer and whatnot. So it was cool, especially with it kind of being at the end of August. It was going to be hot, and it was pretty much good time. I mean, I was completely comfortable the whole time. Like I wasn't sweating, I wasn't shivering. So guess it works out in the end. I would say so.
Take advantage of it while you can. We get that up in Iowa too. If you could imagine, if you could imagine the weather up in Iowa City, it's now starting to switch immediately from summer to like end of fall already.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was 45 degrees this morning, and that's like it's bad. It's bad here, but what can you do?
Maybe I shouldn't say anything then because I think it was like not that it was too much of a difference, but like 48, 50 degrees this morning. So like we were a little warmer. But
Really? Okay.
see that
The
confuses.
thing is,
Yeah.
the thing that's so difficult at Clemson is that like the temperature changes like 25, 30 degrees. Like I think yeah, it's 75 degrees or like something here, and it was 48 this morning. Like it's so impossible to kind of plan your attire, especially if you have like an early morning class, because like by noon you're going to be sweating on your way back to your car or on the bus, or it's so strange.
I think at this point I've learned to like leave space in my book bag just for clothes, like the changes, or like I guess right now it's like to take my sweatshirt off middle of the day and just leave it in my book bag. Or like a few weeks ago, it was to bring just some sort of sleeves with me. I've learned at this point, even when going to cover games, I gotta pack more than like one change of clothes.
Definitely. I would say layers are key. I think that could transcend that anything that you're trying to do. It's definitely important to have like an extra hoodie or something like a pair of shorts, whatever it might be.
The student journalist life, we figure out any way to make it work. We figure out any way to make
Uh,
it.
exactly. I'm sure that you've had those long car rides to try to attend games. It's an experience like no other.
Of course it is. I want to ask too, because we were bringing out stories that were cool, and you brought up the story about the former national champion for the soccer team. Is that your favorite story, or is there another one that stands out to you?
I would say that one was my favorite. I mean, kind of staying on the men's soccer type track. I was able to cover. I was able to go to the College Cup 2 years ago when Clemson won the national championship in men's soccer. So again, kind of similarly, me and three of my, I mean, I didn't really know them at the begin. I didn't really know them much at the beginning of the trip, and then they ended up being three of my closest friends towards the end of it. But we went up to Louisville, Kentucky, and then we watched a semifinal College Cup game, and it was really cool. Unfortunately, the final was on I believe, Monday or Tuesday, so we had class, couldn't come back. But I would say that was really cool. And me and the other three were the only Clemson people that were interviewing the men's head soccer coach, and it was like televised and whatnot. So it was kind of cool to be able to just to like pass the mic between the four of us and just rattle off questions to him. And the men's soccer head coach is such a cool and chill guy, so he's always happy to answer as many questions as possible. And he knows this now, which is pretty cool.
That is awesome. It's always better when the coaches are like just chill and like they understand what's going on. That's did you expect to be like the only three or four guys in that room afterwards?
I think so, especially because men's soccer isn't really covered as much as it is compared to football and basketball, baseball, and whatever, whatnot. I just don't think that's the end up being the case. But yeah, I thought it was a little bit weird. Maybe they had like someone else that was traveling just to, hey, why not watch this game? It's pretty cool. But I didn't. I was pretty surprised, I would say.
No, fair. I remember again the men's basketball tournament, the Big Ten men's basketball tournament. Iowa beat Ohio State in the first round. So I go to the room for the press conference, and it was me, our one of our print reporters, and like maybe two or three other neutral reporters, and that was it. So it was just me and like this other guy that I knew that I was there with, just trading off the mic, like you were saying, just going back and forth and back and forth. I'm like, I was basically scrambling for questions at one point. I'm like, I want to keep him here. I don't want him to go for and after like 5 minutes, but I don't know what else to ask. I've asked like 12 things.
Right. I think it's a cool part too. Sometimes those like press conferences that like are only like two or three people, and like you're like, if I don't ask a question, like what am I doing? So it's cool to kind of be able to like, all right, like I gotta ask something, like I'll ask, just rattle off some stuff. I've been there, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, no, they're fun though. I don't mind asking questions and everything. I know one thing that it's even come up on this podcast even is as a student growing into being comfortable asking questions can be a little bit of a process for some people.
Definitely, at least for me, that was a very long process. Because like I consider myself someone that like I want to ask the perfect question, and I want to be able to, touch all bases, and I want to make sure that other reporters are like, all right, that's a good question. So again, there's a learning curve, and you kind of just run your own race with stuff like that. But with me now, it's kind of like one on one. Like I'm able to be like, okay, like I know what I'm doing. Like whether if it's player or coach, just be like, I have questions in the back of my head every time now, which is good.
It's nice to get in that rhythm. Just that, like, I walk into something like, well, tomorrow morning I'll go to Iowa Football Media Day, and I'll be like, I didn't prep too many questions, but I know what I would want to ask. Like, I feel comfortable enough to figure out, like, all right, I read about the team they're gonna play and ask these type of questions, and that was, yeah, that was a process and a half for me too. Just it was the same thing of like, I don't want to embarrass myself in front of these other reporters.
I think that's again kind of going on a different part of time. Like I think it's cool that you're able to not only know this team, but like tendencies and what to ask and what interviews are going to end up being like, and like even kind of looking at the other, you kind of know what you want to ask other coaches or players about their other teams at that point. So again, it's just a long process. I think that many students just are going to end up having to do, but it ends up being very rewarding because the depth charts, the rotations, every single recruit and every single freshman that are coming onto campus. So you're kind of just again, like a beacon of information.
Yeah, trust you gotta have some confidence in yourself, you know?
Most definitely. Most definitely. I think a lot of, especially student journalists, I think they know a lot more than what many people think. Again, like the term student journalist, it really depends on I know that there's mixed opinions and mixed feelings about it. But at the end of the day, you're there to learn. I think that's the most important thing. Everyone, mostly, not all, are getting paid to be there. They're just doing it for the experience and they're doing it for the love of the game. So I think confidence is key, regardless of what you're doing, and I think especially in front of the camera, and whether on the radio, podcasting, broadcasting, it's going to be important regardless of what you're doing.
You brought up the term student journalist being a little like some people have different opinions on it. Can I ask about yours about it?
Yeah, I think being a student journalist, I think it's imperative if you're trying to get into the industry. I think it's just being someone that is really curious about how things are. I think there's just so many different definitions, and I know that you've heard so many different definitions. But I think a student journalist, kind of at the core of it, is saying yes to anything and any opportunity that you're able to have. And you're only here for so long that you're just trying to get as much information, as many stories, as much of the kind of like a repertoire under your belt before you can't use that term anymore, and you're kind of looking for a job. So I think again, you're just like making sure that you're understanding and you're picking up just kind of how a regular journalist works, and you kind of just add on the classes in addition. Like I've heard so many people that after they graduate, they're like, "This is so much easier because we don't have an exam to study for, or no classes to attend to, so we can't go to a press conference or look at an article." So just some food for thought off my end.
That's what I've had to tell myself that for so long of just breathe. Remember when college is done and classes are over, this will not feel so overwhelming at times. I think at times it can feel overwhelming. It's like, all right, today I got to go there, and today I'm gonna like tell this story. I guess is more spoken word on my end. But then also I have three classes this day, four on this day. It can build up on each other. I mean, I want to ask you. It's one of my kind of core questions for this is how do you balance being a journalist but also being a student?
I think time management is huge, and I think that's the most important thing. And I think again, another thing that you have to do is make sacrifices. At least on my end, an example of that is for the first time in 6 semesters, I have an 8 a.m. this semester. That's because the only time I would have the class is the Tuesday, Thursday. I don't know how Iowa does it with classes, but it's like the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then like the Tuesday, Thursdays are the okay, cool. So I had to take on the 8 a.m. because I wanted to make sure that I would be able to attend Wednesday morning interviews, or I would have more time to write stories on Mondays instead of going to class on Mondays. So I think manage your time is huge. Limiting kind of like that useless time of doom scrolling. Yes, you got to do it. Like I'd still do it, but you just got to take advantage of your time, and making sure you're taking time for yourself as well. I think that's really important. That's a really underrated factor of it because you want to be able to control yourself first compared to or before you're able to kind of go out there as a professional. And maybe you don't know a lot, or maybe there's like you're still learning, but at least you know yourself. I think that's a really important kind of trait to have. But managing your time, I'd say sleep when you can. I would say that's a really big one. And taking time for yourself. I'd say those are probably the three most important things that I would say.
Those are all extremely underrated. I remember like freshman and I guess also sophomore year of high school, I took a leadership class, and one of the biggest things we always stressed on was as much as you can learn and know, me time or just like taking time to like just breathe is vital to whatever direction we go in life. It was like no matter what, as long if you're not comfortable with yourself or with the time that you have for yourself, you're not going to be comfortable with anything.
No, I think that's a really, really powerful statement. Like you got to take time for yourself. Like this is a industry that's tough. I mean, regardless of what you think, sports are sports, but like you got to grind for it. Especially if you're trying to get into the field. I mean, that's kind of what this podcast is all about. So you're just trying to like you just got to make sure you're taking time for yourself, even if it's like going to the gym every day for an hour or, going for a run or, journaling or, anything like that to kind of either clear your mind or set something apart. Like, okay, this is work me. How about personal me? What am I doing to just get better as a person, not as a journalist or a broadcaster or anything in sports media? What do I need to do?
There's another side to all of us, I promise. It's not just all the stories we put out there on Twitter and everything. We're real people too. We're real people.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree. We're all human after all. So I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind.
Absolutely, it is. I'm glad you brought that up because it is really important and it's a great thing to discuss, especially just because it's not only an issue for the professional journalists, it's an issue for students as well. And we treat it serious. We treat it serious on that end.
I'd say so. We have our fun, but at the same time, we're professional when it matters.
Oh
I
yeah.
would say that.
Well, speaking of, I want to also move on to Clemson on SI as well. Your associate beat writer there with that. So, how similar does that look with everything you're doing with the Tiger paper? Or just what's that look like?
Yeah, I'd say it's a little bit different because now with that point, I again, it's just mainly writing. So making sure there's daily content coming out from my end, as well as other writers that are on the beat with me. But I would say something that's different, I guess, is you're really working for clicks instead of working for content. So for me, I mean, it's a paid job, but I get paid by how many page views I get or how many clicks I get. So it has taught me really like what are people looking for? What are people looking for with information? Because there's sometimes that I've written stuff and it's flopped completely, and I've wasted 2 to 3 hours. But if the people are looking for a different angle or looking for something new that they haven't heard of before, because again, you're constantly competing with different publications that have had a grounded foundation for the last, I'd say, last 20, 30 years. So being part of like a newer company, that's kind of what you're looking for. And then I think the work ethic is really important as well. And even if it sucks that it's like 6 or 7 p.m, 8 p.m, and you're like, I lacking motivation, and then like you feel a lot better once you get out of piece, even if you have class assignments or anything to do like that. So I think that's really allowed me to kind of take the next step with what I've been trying to do, because I'm writing an additional story every day compared to what I've been doing for the last several semesters. So I think it's important, and it's taught me that like I can really work a lot and I can work under pressure, and I think it's important.
Yeah, learning to work under pressure, I think is awesome, especially because in this one, I mean, there is that pressure a little bit, especially when you're working for clicks and everything. But I think most people, when they pick up something else, realize they can do so much more than what they think. I think for me, like in high school and everything, I was like, oh, I'll start with this or that. I can only do so much at a time, and I realized as I picked up more stuff, I was like, oh no, I'm capable of more. I'm capable to do this as well, and I'm capable of finding time for this.
Definitely. I think, again, time management is probably the most important thing. Whether if you're a college student or a college journalist, if you're able to manage your time well, that can include during a game and meeting a deadline. And, should I have this thing pre-written if I already know, or, I have a good idea that something will be said about this. Um, so it's just important making sure that you're scheduling yourself right and you're making yourself available at the better times. I think, again, to your point, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, you mentioned writing for clicks, and you said just finding a new angle can be so important for. Is that like the biggest part? Is that here's something where I'm pretty out of the loop on. I don't think we've gotten on this podcast yet. Is that truly just that side of it? That's what you're looking for, or are there different ways you found that getting clicks is like it's beneficial to get clicks?
I think again, I consider myself like someone ethical. Like I do want to tell stories, but at the same time, similar to everybody, like I'm just trying to do my part and make sure that I'm growing as a writer and people are knowing what I'm writing about. So it can be as simple as, if people are taking one quote this way, how are you taking this quote the other way? Or how are you able to base a story around one specific quote that a player said that, other people aren't really talking about? So kind of that's that type of ordeal. Like I'm trying to think, for example, if I've written anything like that. But like again, I think speculation stuff is big. People love speculation. So I'm also a big fan of writing about numbers. And I think that's been doing really well. I was a math guy before this. I mean, I haven't taken a lick of math since, senior year of high school now. But I'm always really fascinated about what different models think, what different numbers think. I'm not a gambling man, but spreads and whatnot. Um, so things like that are all really kind of I see a lot of people getting interest in them. So although I do like the normal stuff, like the normal telling this story, I want to take unique angles. So I think you have to mix a little bit on both, so you're able to get the ethical side, and then you're able to get the financial side of, okay, people are reading my stuff. I'm able to kind of make a living for myself off of this.
Numbers are underrated. Numbers are fun. I was like, again, I'm also in the same boat where I haven't taken math since senior year of high school in any capacity, but I was a math guy at the point where I got to give my brother a shout out because why not? He calls me every so often for math advice and everything. So I want to give him some love and everything, but numbers are underrated and they need to be used more in journalism.
I think they tell the story, and it makes your job a whole lot easier. That's my opinion on numbers.
Especially in sports, they can help tell a lot of different stories and everything.
Exactly. Even kind of like magnitude, like even as simple as a number of a year. Like if you're able to say like, I'm trying to think like I'm a Man United fan, so they beat Liverpool yesterday. It was like, yeah, first time in 10 years they were able to win. Like that's powerful. That means something.
Yeah, it holds weight. I mean, a lot of those numbers hold a lot of weight, whether it's like a football statistic or just year-long droughts, they hold weight. So I think that, especially in sports, yeah, it helps out a lot. I was curious when you brought up like the new angle thing. Is it hard to separate like different angles between the Tiger and Clemson on SI?
I think so. Something that I'm able to kind of do is I'm able to kind of separate myself with the two. So obviously with the Tiger, I've been mainly kind of men's basketball, men's soccer, a little bit of football. But kind of with football, the only time I'm really writing football is for our printed issues. So at that point, I'm able to ask myself, okay, what is kind of the overview of how I'm able to depict this Clemson football team for the next week, because it's going to be on stands for the next week or the week and a half. So how can I let people keep reading my stuff with making it still relevant? So I think that compared to SI, where you're looking for more daily stuff, like people are going to go to the website once a day. What news can I present to them over the course of the day that will kind of ask them why? Like, why is this important? So kind of stuff like that. Also, splitting up sports are pretty important. I've done a lot of men's soccer over the course as sports editor, a little bit of basketball as well. Um, so just things like that, taking different angles. What are the students like compared to what do the general public want to see?
Yeah, no, okay, that makes a lot more. That makes sense then. Yeah, I was like, I've I do like personally like the TV side, our student TV, but also like Big Ten Plus and our student radio.
Mhm.
And I don't feel like that's very hard to separate some things because they're all like kind of different little sources of media. But again, I'm not a good writer, so I don't do too much writing. So I'm always curious to see like how difficult it can be to separate some of that stuff.
Yeah, I think again, it's audience. I think that's another important thing. Like you got to think about who your audience is. If this newspaper is going to be on the stands for plenty of students, if this is going to go on a social media post where 75% of the followers are students, like I'd rather pertain to them than something that's more general public that I can put on Twitter, and anybody in the Clemson community will be like, okay, like this is important. I think that there's a little bit of a difference between the two sometimes.
No, there is. I think always like when you're going for a story, because I always look at like viewership as well. We try to figure out how we're growing, and yeah, knowing the audience is the most important part in that aspect of like how do we grow viewership? How do you grow clicks per se? We will use the term clicks and everything as well.
Yeah, just gotta put yourself in the other people in your audience, in your target audience's shoes sometimes, and
Yeah.
I think that's all. I think that answers a lot of questions.
Yeah. Being at Clemson, I can't go without talking about a few things there. Obviously, like men's soccer is huge, but I want to ask about Howard's Rock and the tradition with the rock and everything. Like I've never experienced it, never been out that way. Just talk to me about Death Valley, the tradition there.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favorite parts about Clemson is the tradition. There's everything is regimented and everything stays the same during home weekends, and I think it's incredible. Like you wear orange on Fridays every Friday, and then now there's Tiger Walk where, everyone lines up to this runway where the buses are going to drop off Sweeney and the players. But I'd say Howard's Rock has been, I haven't been to many away stadiums, and I've watched a lot over the course, but I almost get goosebumps every time when they're touching the rock and they're running down the hill. I think it's so cool and like you know despite what kind of how we've been performing at home, it's such a cool tradition and it's something that is going to remain the same and that's something that stays constant. And again, I think that's important. But it's I've been to some really these the Clemson home games they're very legitimate. Like they're loud. They're some of the loudest that I've been to, whether if it's basketball or whether if it's football. It's just cool. I think like everybody should see it once in their life, because you'll get that feeling and you'll understand it when you're there.
It's a bucket list item. That just being at a game there, it's a bucket list item for me. I think I'll always remember watching. This was years ago, but Clemson and Louisville faced off
Mhm.
in Death Valley, and that was I wasn't like a big fan of either team, but I think I felt like I don't want to say goosebumps, but I could just feel like the hair start to rise. Like that was like just the build up of that game was one of the best in memories.
Absolutely, absolutely. College game day was here my freshman year for NC State, and kind of when they were like lingering up at the hill, and the camera crews do such a good job of portraying like how big it is with like the hill run and being able to show the buses go around the stadium and then the hill run and then there's a cameraman following Dabo who's sprinting, of course. It's really cool. I would recommend if you're a college football fan. There are some big ones that you should attend to. I would say Clemson is definitely one of them, regardless of record, regardless of performance. I'd say anywhere.
Get the Clemson. I think that's a top 10 tradition too, probably. There's no way it's not, right? Like
I'd
in
say
all
I'd say
college.
undisputed.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever, okay, now just for fun, like, do you ever get scared that someone's gonna fall down the hill at all?
That's actually it's so funny because every time the freshmen get interviewed, they're like, "Are you afraid you're gonna fall?" And that's like the main thought in a lot of these players' heads. My one thing is that there is a student section on the hill. I've never been on the hill. I think that I should probably end up doing that. There's a few more home games. Maybe I do it for senior day, but it's steep. So give credit to the players. It is very steep, and you got to focus on whatever you're doing. That whenever you're doing when you're running down there.
You're not chopping your feet in warm-ups. You're chopping it then on the way down, making sure you're ready. There's no,
No, exactly.
because I know I could imagine myself like trying that, and then I'd probably just be full like speed ahead, just trying to like anything I could not to trip down that.
Yeah, no, on the contrary, I think like I'd like over jump and like I'd be trying to like put my feet down. I'm like, oh, I'm still going, and just land on my face. I wouldn't be shocked if that ends up what I do if I ever do that.
I can speak for myself by saying there's a reason I'm on this side of things now.
No, likewise. Like there's a reason why we do this. I mean, we love it. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm the most athletic though, but
No,
I'll
I
stick to this.
just to see if I'm like, or if like just people are unaware of stuff. I know like the three biggest sports. Well, I don't even know if I say three, but when I think of Clemson, I do think of football first, obviously, and I think because I'm a big baseball guy, I think of baseball. I know men's soccer is big and basketball has been growing, but is there any sport there that I'm missing that's like underratedly really good?
Underrated, really good. I think I think if we're talking like underrated, not many people know about, I would say men's soccer.
Yeah.
But there are stints where our women's soccer team 2 years ago went to the College Cup, which was very impressive. They like took down several top 25 teams throughout the season. So that was a really fun season to cover. I didn't cover much. We had a beat writer with them, but it was cool to kind of see how men's soccer was making a run and then women's soccer was able to make a run. So there was a lot of back-to-back home games in like November um, for both of those teams. So I thought that was cool. Women's basketball is on the come up. Our second year head coach Sean Poppy recruits really well, and there's a very promising and a very like trending buzz around the team. Although the ACC is loaded with women's basketball, it's on the come up, which is good. I'd say softball has been very good. It was a very new program, and the softball team, they had some really great players over the last several years. But I think they've hosted regionals. I think they've hosted a super regional. It's just been a matter of being able to get to the College World Series, which they haven't done yet. But the coaching staff and the players, they have the capability to do so. Once again this year.
If you keep it close and everything, at one point, you've got to break through that mold, right, and make it. You would think. You would think.
Exactly. I mean, you could say the same thing for the baseball team. They haven't made the CWS in 15 years, and they're now a perennial contender to make it. So it's just a matter of you got to win the games when it matters.
They're good. They're good. They're fun to watch. They're fun to watch. I will say that from an outside perspective, they are very fun to watch. But I want to ask you, we kind of talked about it earlier near the beginning of this, but I want to ask you directly, if you were telling someone on the outside of this industry why student journalism and student stories is so important, what would you tell them?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think. I think it's important because you're getting angles that I don't think any general reporter would receive. I think that yes, all reporters work together, but there's a very strong community among everybody where everyone's trying to help out each other with different types of contacts because you don't have that repertoire. You don't have the network at least for me, I didn't have the network that I had 4 years ago. So it's cool when you're able to like everyone's kind of helping each other out and they're getting giving the context with each other. Like that's one of my favorite parts about leading with Sports Editor of the Tiger is that there will be someone that's writing a story about a club sport, and then someone's like, "Okay, my roommate is in this club sport," and so they're like, "Oh, one of my good friends." So like, it's cool how everyone just really helps each other out. Not only the students help each other out, but I think the professionals help the students out as well as much as they can. And I could say the same for Clemson. Clemson does a fantastic job of the people that are covering the beat. They do a really good job of how they're able to spread information out and help them out, help the students out when they need to. It's a really cool thing. So I'd say the networking, and I'd say there's probably a lot of unique stories that come out that aren't as expected as just a group of kids just writing recaps and previews about different sports that are going on in the area. There's always that interesting angle that comes around.
No, we still got some good feature stories and everything, but I like how you took it as an angle of like the community of journalism in general is very special.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably been the most special part about me because even when you're going to away games like football, like sometimes you'll be in the middle of nowhere. Like, for example, like being in Rhode Island, like I was in the middle of nowhere, and you're able to find these different staffers that are working there, covering it for their respective papers or respective websites, and it becomes a family almost. And at least for Clemson, everybody helps each other out. Um, at least yesterday, I was at there was someone that was he used to be a student here. Now he's a full-time writer with one of the websites around the area, one of the top ones. And I now go to his house and watch NFL sometimes, which is awesome. And shout out Grayson. He just does everyone just does a really good job of helping each other out and just finding that community. And sometimes I forget I'm a student journalist because you're with such a tight knit group of people, and I feel like that happens everywhere for some reasons.
No, I would agree. I know that happens here as well. I just got a really good community of people, which is awesome and makes this so much more fun with what we do. And I know with what point you're at, graduating at the end of the semester, if you had a chance to go back and tell yourself, like as you're entering college, as you're getting into this industry, that you're at the point that you are right now, what would you tell yourself?
I'd say yes to anything. Anything journalism or sports media related. Because the amount of opportunities that I've received for just being like, okay, like why not? Like let's go to Louisville or let's go to a random football game, let's go to Wake Forest or whatever it may be. It ends up being some of the most rewarding. I think a lot of people fear the unknown with that, and sometimes you're able to see that with different writers or being like, do you want to do this? You're like, oh, I'm not sure. Anytime you're on the fence with something, just say yes to it because you have no idea the opportunities that may come. The network, you're going to create more people that are part of your network, and sometimes you can meet some of your closest friends. I think that's more important from a human standpoint. you're able to meet a lot more people, and you have the chance of meeting some of the greatest friends that you meet because you're sharing a really close interest. So I'd say that say yes to anything because you never know where it could take you.
Yeah, I think you are really sharing such a unique experience. I know like you've said it, I'll say it as well. I've met my closest friends up here through what I do, and just by being together constantly talking about the same stuff and having the same interests. It's like it's a free friend, honestly.
No, I completely agree. I think, having clubs like that and with Tiger Media, that's kind of been like the whole thing, the whole student media. It's awesome. And everyone's really helping each other out. And you're seeing where, at least for me now, like so when I started, I was a freshman. I was one of the only freshmen that was part of the sports section. And now I've been able to see where so many other people are going. And, at the same time, it's like I've been in rooms with you and I've been able to do stuff with you. And now you're, working for a publication or working for a team or, working for some other thing that, like, you know what, that's awesome. It's cool. When you're really thinking about it, not just from a network standpoint, but you're like, look at them go. Like, I'm sure you understand.
Yeah, I do. It just the human aspect of like just seeing people succeed, seeing people that you enjoy being around, friends succeed, whether it's in journalism or not, is great. And especially with what we're doing, it's great to see like, all right, that's what I'm grinding for. It's what I'm striving for. And I see like that's the work that someone I know has put in, and now they're reaching their goals.
Yeah, I think another thing, because I mean, we don't have a journalism school at Clemson. Most of us are communication, sports communication, that type of stuff. And it's honestly sometimes a lot of people think of it as a joke here because you don't have to do all of the heavy lifting. Like most of my roommates one of my roommates is an engineer, political science, finance, this, that, and the other. So, but sometimes I'm the person that, hold on, excuse me 1 second. I didn't want that phone call going off. I apologize.
You're all good.
Um, But I would say like it's cool because you're putting in some of like the hardest work and you're not even doing it for a grade, you're not even doing it for money, you're doing it just because for the love of the game. Like I just said. So you meet some of the hardest working people because they're trying to do exactly what you're trying to do is get a job out of college. And it's really cool to see.
It's always fun that again the part that I justify with myself is it's a dream, and it's like following and striving for something you almost like grow up. Like from my perspective, it's like I grew up thinking that this would be a cool job. Not didn't know if it was my first job, first choice or not. Didn't know what I wanted to do, but I grew up thinking like, yeah, that'd be a dream job, and now you have a chance to strive for it.
Yeah, I'm a strong believer in doing what you love and you wouldn't work a day the rest of your life. And the work that I do is tough, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I like if you like looking back, if I like had the choice to do it again, I would do it again because it's just so rewarding. And, sure, I was tired at that point. I was running on, 2 hours, 3 hours of sleep, but those are some of the best memories that you'll make, not only as a student journalist, but, at the school in general. Some of my best memories at Clemson have been my time as a student journalist. And I think that goes so under the radar, not only among other student journalists that are willing to take that next jump, but just other people in general, because it's truly such a valuable experience that it brings.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna steal your words. Nail on the head with that right there. Nail on the head. But with everything we're doing, we brought it up. You're trying to get more views, trying to get more eyes on your work and everything. So an opportunity for you here to kind of plug yourself and your work, an opportunity for people to go check out where they can find more of your work after they listen to this.
Yeah, so the tigerscu.com will be where you can find everybody's stuff from the Tiger Student newspaper. You can go to staff, you could find my name. It's very easy. I think it's a pretty simple interface. With me, same thing. Clemson Tigers on si.com. You'll find most of my work there. My Twitter is Griffin Barfield. Capital G, capital B. I don't really think that matters, but you'll be able to find it. But yeah, those are the three ways that you can find me. If for some reason you'd want to shoot me a DM for some reason, feel free. I'm always open. I'm always happy to respond. But yeah, that's where you could find me.
And I'll make sure I link everything where this is posted as well so people can get to that. But again, thank you for sparing some time today and joining me here on the Student Beat.
Of course, Colin. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Student Beat. As we heard, Griffin is about to make those next steps in his career, so you want to follow him along for all the cool stuff that he's about to do. And if you want to stay up to date with all upcoming episodes of The Student Beat, make sure to follow me on Twitter at C_Crothers33, or you can follow the podcast at The Student Beat on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. We just walked The Student Beat. I'll see you next week for a brand new episode.